Hi everyone, Christine here. Welcome back to my YouTube channel, A Dash of Soy, the channel for home cooks that want to learn more about Chinese cooking and culture. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a sweet and sour pork recipe Chinese style. What I like about this dish is that it is crunchy and saucy, and I can't wait to show you. If you want weekly recipes, go on to my website at adashofsoy.com for more. Hi everyone, Christine here. Today I'm going to be showing you how to make a classic Chinese dish, which is Tong Chou Pai Guat, sweet and sour ribs. So I'm going to show you the key part to making this dish successful, which is having a nice sauce, but also retaining that nice crunchiness to the spare ribs. So it can be kind of tricky. Sometimes have you had spare ribs where it's like it tastes good, but then it tastes a little soggy? The breading of the spare ribs tastes kind of soggy because of the sauce. I'm going to show you how to master this technique so that you will have a nice crunchy spare rib, but also a nice delicious sauce with it. For this recipe, you're going to need some flour. I recommend potato starch, but if you don't have it, cornstarch is a nice alternative. Some baking powder and 1 or 2 eggs depending on your size. Some pineapple for the sourness, 2 pounds of spare ribs, some rock sugar, and also vinegar. So I recommend this black rice vinegar because it has a nice tartness and depth to it. In my opinion, it's the best vinegar for this recipe. That's how the Shanghainese people make it. But regular vinegar is also a good alternative. I can't wait to get started making these spare ribs. To bread my spare ribs, and I already marinated my spare ribs, blanched it for 2 minutes, and then marinated it with some Su Heng wine and salt and a little bit of garlic. So now I'm gonna start breading. Okay, before you start breading, make sure that your egg wash, there's little to no egg whites, because if there is a big clump of egg white, it will just stick to the rib like all slobbery on it. So it's important to try to get rid of all the wet egg whites. Okay, so I'm gonna start with my egg wash and then dip it in the mixture here. So it's important to dust off the excess flour so the breading doesn't get too clumpy. Dust it off like that. I've made this recipe a bunch of times, and I've been trying to figure out the right breading for this recipe, and my father-in-law is actually a chef that has a restaurant for 30 years. So he told me the key to making that breading kind of expand in a way, like not too crunchy, has a nice soft texture, but also kind of expand a little, kind of fluffy, is adding a little bit of that baking powder to it. So this breading recipe is from my father-in-law, and he had a restaurant for 30 years, so it's very awesome that he can show me some of these techniques. Okay, so I'm done breading now, and I'm ready to heat up my oil for deep frying. Just wiping out all the water, because if you have water in your pot, then if you put oil in it, it's gonna bounce back and it's really like bad. So it's important to keep your pot really clean of no water, and also try to use a deep small pot so that you have the oil mixture will be deeper and it's more evenly deep fried. I have 2 cups of oil here, and I know that seems like a lot, like very wasteful. What do I do with this oil after I'm done deep frying? but actually you can still use this oil. The oil is still good if it's not black yet. So you can actually keep it in a bowl and just use it for the rest of the week, or whenever you're cooking anything, just add a little bit more oil. So the oil is no good when it turns black. So if it hasn't turned black yet, you can still reuse it for a little bit. My oil has been heated up for a while now. I'm gonna check to see it's ready. So I use a chopstick method just to put it inside the oil. If there's bubbles forming around the chopsticks, that means it's warm enough, okay? So I just put my oil to like a medium heat, not too hot. And I'm gonna start frying my ribs. Okay. So as a general rule of thumb, I try to put the similar size pieces together. That way you can gauge the cook better. So don't try to put like the massive pieces and the tiny pieces together and then cook them at the same time, because it would not cook evenly. And I usually fry the ribs for around 7 to 8 minutes. For the bigger pieces, maybe 8 minutes. The smaller pieces, 6 to 7 minutes. I set a timer. Okay. And then in between the frying, you can just kind of move it around. And don't crowd the ribs when you're frying, because they could stick together. That's a key also. You do have to fry in batches, unfortunately. And I also have my baking racks ready, my cooling racks. That way the ribs will stay crispy after you fry them. Okay, so while I'm deep frying, I forgot to say that you have to put a paper towel under the cooling rack so that the oil from the spare ribs will just drip down to that paper towel and it won't get your counter all dirty. And also when you're deep frying, make sure you use a high heat oil. That's good for deep frying, or else your oil will burn and that will be no good. So a high heat oil that I use is safflower oil. That's a good high heat oil. I think vegetable oil is okay too, but do not use a low heat oil like olive oil to deep fry. That's not good. So when you're deep frying, make sure that it is kind of golden brown when you take it out, kind of like this, and that's when it's ready. So now my wok is warm. I'm gonna use 2 tablespoons of that cooking oil. That's still good. Get my wok ready, nice and warm. If your oil at this point is already like blackened, then that means it's no good. Don't use that oil anymore. Mine is still okay, so I can still reuse it. I have my 1 cup of black vinegar ready and 1 cup of water and half a cup of rock sugar. Half a cup plus 1 tablespoon of rock sugar, but you can adjust the sweetness to your liking. I'm gonna sauce first. So after I start adding in the sauce ingredients, I just have to wait for the rock sugar to melt before I add in the ribs. Okay, so my rock sugar has melted and my sauce has been boiling for about like 7 to 8 minutes, and now it's like a nice saucy texture. So when my sauce is boiling, like right now it is boiling nice and hot, that's when it's ready for the ribs to be added in. The key is to make sure your sauce is hot. That's the key to making sure the ribs, the bedding on the ribs won't get softened and soggy. So if your sauce is hot enough when you add in the ribs, then the sauce will just coat right on top of the breading and it won't make it soggy, okay? So it has to be boiling and nice and warm. If it's not warm enough, that's what's gonna make your breading soggy. So it's boiling now. I'm going to add in my ribs. So I recommend not moving your ribs around too much, just using the wok itself to kind of coat the sauce in there. So last but not least, my pineapples. Just add in my pineapples to coat the sauce with. There you go. Lightly moving around the sauce, the ribs, and then I'm going to use my wok to just kind of lightly coat my ribs like that. This is the best way to coat your ribs. There you go. And now these ribs are ready. You can garnish with some green onions and white sesame seeds to bring out the color, because the black vinegar is a little dark, so you can brighten it up with a little bit of like white sesame seeds. You want more? Okay, tell everyone, do you like your spare rib? Is it crunchy? Let me try. Oh yeah, crunchy on the outside and soft on the inside. Oh my god, I love these spare ribs so much. And with some sauce, goes so good with rice bub, right? Yeah. Oh, Mila. Nah. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.